Welcome back to the burn, everybody. I am Ryan Van Dever, and I am joined with Jordan Van Dever. Yes, you have guessed it. He is my son, and we are presented to you by Hot Zone Sports. The information that you need to know, built with you in mind, for the people, by the people, and with the people. Join the Hot Zone Sports Mafia today. Yeah, remember our show is wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. So if you could rate and review us, we would really appreciate that. If you're watching on YouTube, first off, congratulations, you found us. Secondly, subscribe to the show and then hit that notification button so you'll always know when our content drops. Make sure you like the videos, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And wherever you like the social media, we are there. That's right. You can find us on at Hot Zone Sports on all of the social media platforms. Now, I have to apologize for not being around for 2 weeks. I was insanely sick. Ridiculous cough. I actually could not talk without coughing. It was pretty bad. I had a fever, oxygen went down. I hope everybody's staying safe out there and you aren't sick because it is going around like crazy. But I want to give a shout out to my wife for nursing me back to health. She did absolutely everything known to man. I love you, sweetheart. Man, I hope everyone has a wife like mine. Lucky man right here. But I am back and raring to go. Expect more podcasts, reels, shorts, and everything in between. Let the good times roll. So, how have you been, Jordan, over the past couple of weeks? Have you been getting the podcast itch?
Yeah, I've been wanting to do it. I mean, since you've been sick, we haven't been able to do it, but it all happens to us. But yeah, it's been a fun few weeks. There's good games coming on.
Oh, yeah. We got championship weekend coming up. We had the divisional weekend this past weekend, and we had the college football championship. But let's go ahead and get right into it. On today's episode, we are going to get into all the divisional weekend games of the NFL. Chiefs, Texans. Wow. The controversy. What kind of Chiefs game would it be without the controversy? Am I right? Is Mahomes the new LeBron when it comes to flopping? There's flopping in the NFL now. That's just wild to think about. The Lions lost to the Commanders in what felt like a collapse of the ages. 5 turnovers. 4. I really only count 4. The 5th one was towards the end of the game. They just couldn't protect the ball whatsoever. Goff alone had 3 interceptions and 1 fumble loss. You just can't afford that in the playoffs when it's one and done. When a lot of these games, the margin of error is just razor thin. And we saw in that game what that was. Also on Sunday, we had the Bills squeaking by the Ravens in dramatic fashion, 27-25. By now, you have to feel for Mark Andrews. He had that fumble, but in reality, they had still had a chance to come back down and score after that fumble. But then the drop was just devastating. He catches that 99 times out of 100 times. So we will recap that game. Then the final divisional game was the Eagles beating the Rams, and this was a score of 28-22. This score doesn't really give it much justice. This game was not that close in the fourth quarter. Barkley went beast mode once again, carried 205 yards on 26 carries, 2 touchdowns, and that freaking crazy 78-yard run. This dude is the X factor in every single one of these games. Hurts is not that dude from a couple of years ago. We'll get more into this game, but the Eagles defense recovered 4 fumbles. Wow. Then the college football national championship. I know everybody knows I'm a Notre Dame guy, so don't castrate me. If you watched the full game, you saw the difference between the elite players that Ohio State had and the grinded out type of players that Notre Dame had. Notre Dame doesn't have 5-star recruits or transfers all over the field, but you can tell they were well coached, and I am officially a Marcus Freeman fan. So what were your thoughts about these games before we dive into them, Jordan?
Well, I'm gonna start off with that Notre Dame game. It was sad because Ray Leonard started off with a rushing touchdown, pretty sure rushing touchdown, but they drove down the field with ease. I just don't know what happened after that. I know the Ohio State defense is good, but you got to do better than that. And plus, all the running backs combined, they only had 8 carries. Like you saw Jeremiah Love in the last game, he went off, and you give him like 2-3 carries. That just don't make any sense to me.
Well, it's a lot like the Ravens game in terms of, the Ravens, they went away from their strength. Once again, they had their strength is running the ball. You got the best running quarterback in the NFL. You got a top 2 running back in the NFL and Derrick Henry, and they started running. They started just doing their pocket passing type of thing and running away from their strength. But I will say, when it came to that Notre Dame game, it was just they couldn't run the ball unless your name was Leonard. Okay, that is just the facts on the whole ordeal. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on when it came to the games over the weekend?
Yeah, I got to speak more on that Notre Dame game because, yeah, Ray Leonard's impressive. He can do it all. I've seen, but he's gonna get tired. Like if you're throwing the ball and you're rushing the ball in the same drive, same game, you're gonna be really tired, and you're not gonna be able to make the throws late game. And they needed those throws late game, which they were trying to catch up, make a comeback late in the game, but it was just too late. Will Howard and the offense they were up by too many points.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's just go ahead and get into all these recaps here. The first game that we're going to touch on is the Texans and the Chiefs. All right. Now, we obviously have to talk about the controversy because we just need to go ahead and have this uncomfortable conversation here. All right. This narrative that the refs are helping the Chiefs win has reached an epic scale. All right. Like, this has gotten out of hand. I understand. Nobody wants the Chiefs to three-peat except Chiefs fans themselves. But we got to stop this. Let me just throw a stat out there for you. All right. Since 2018, including the postseason, the Chiefs are 29th in penalty yard differential with negative 693. That is the most total penalty yards. Just give this a minute to digest, all right? And just consider that all Chiefs games are fixed, okay? Did the refs allow the Chiefs to get 8 sacks against the Texans? How about the 3 missed kicks? Did the refs allow that? How about the 9 tackles for loss? How about the 14 quarterback hits? Did they allow that? Did the refs allow Travis Kelce to go 7 receptions for 117 yards and 1 touchdown? No, that wasn't the refs. None of this was the refs. It was the Texans. I get it. The roughing the passer was a close play. But sitting at home on the couch, we have multiple camera angles. These refs are deciding on a bang-bang play. This narrative needs to stop. That the refs love the Chiefs. We've seen all the memes. We've seen all the GIFs and the videos of them making out with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. It's ridiculous. Yeah, they're funny, but it just needs to we needs to stop, okay?
Yeah, Mahomes didn't play terribly bad in this game, I wouldn't say, but he didn't do the greatest either. He only threw for 177 and 1 touchdown. Because he doesn't rush like other quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson. So he's mostly a passer. He'll run out of the pocket, extended play, but really, I think the main factor of this game was Travis Kelce, of course, with 117 reception yards. But I think it was a lot of the defense too, because Karlaftis, he had 3 sacks, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And they just didn't have any trouble getting to the quarterback because they combined for 8 sacks. So people can say what they want about Pat Mahomes, about the Chiefs, all that stuff. They can say all that, but there wasn't good protection for the Texans, and that's why they lost.
Yeah, I mean, it's just let's go ahead and talk about the calls that were controversial, okay? And this wasn't a call, but it was just something that Patrick Mahomes did. The flop on the sidelines. All right. Yeah, it was a bit too much. Okay. I think whether you're a Chiefs fan or you're a Chiefs hater, you can all agree that it was a bit much. But Mahomes even addressed it, saying that it was too much. D'Amico Ryans even addressed it, talking about the Chiefs. You know what it's going to take when you play the Chiefs. He went a little bit deeper into that, but we're not going to get into that. But you have the entire football world having fully decided that the Chiefs are cheating. You have Tunchi getting on Twitter talking about the cheating Chiefs. Well, I have a random question here. Where was this energy when the Patriots were actually cheating, getting caught red-handed? My hand's not red, but let's just say red-handed. When they were in the smack dead center of their dynasty. But I didn't like the roughing the passer penalty that we saw in the game. It felt more like a techie tack type of call. In the NBA, it would have been the type of call LeBron James would get because of his history. But in the NFL, whether you hate it or you love it, every quarterback in the NFL is going to be protected, and some are protected more than others. Obviously, we saw the Lamar Jackson hit when he was going out of bounds. That wasn't called. Some players get those calls. Like if you want to talk about the most roughing the passer calls, that award goes to Josh Allen. But it is a league obsessed with protecting quarterbacks. It's the kind of play that can draw a flag for a late hit from an official who wasn't paying enough attention. Fans of opposing teams would suggest that Mahomes was intentionally baiting the officials into a flag while capitalizing on his status as the league's biggest star.
Yeah, we could say that he baited the refs for that call. He was pushed out of bounds on that play, but he flopped. We've seen LeBron in the NBA. That guy flops more than anyone.
Yes.
And he's pretty good at it. But I think Mahomes did a little too much on that. I saw him get hit, but that was not a big enough hit to flop like that.
Yeah, it was a bit much. We can all agree on that. But, we've seen a couple of times this year where Mahomes will just kind of dance on the sidelines. He won't go out of bounds. I mean, we saw it with, I believe, Shair, the Texans linebacker. I don't think it was against the Chiefs, but it was against Lawrence, Jaguars quarterback, where he wasn't dancing, but he slid late, and I think the quarterbacks are taking advantage of situations like that, especially Mahomes. He's done it a couple of times this season where he dances around on the sideline, waits till the very last second, and then goes out of bounds. So the NFL is kind of going to have to do something about that because we can't continue to have quarterbacks just trying to take advantage of the rules and try to get a 15-yard penalty. We just can't do that. But there were multiple flags thrown against the Texans for the hits on Mahomes that were questionable at best. There was this play in which the two Texans defenders collided when attempting to tackle Mahomes at the end of the run. Mahomes was clearly the runner on the play and slid at the last second as these two defenders, Tuo and Fadukasi, converged on him. I think the defenders got the brunt of the damage, not Mahomes, but there was a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty for the hit that made marginal, if any, contact to Mahomes' helmet. But, Mahomes was just a runner on the play who slid at the very last second. Just like Lawrence slid at the very last second when he was playing the Texans. But the flag was thrown, and the Chiefs went on to score a touchdown on that drive to extend their lead to 20-12. But let's hear from Mahomes on what he had to say about that play. The one that everybody's talking about where I fall down. I was just trying to get out of the way of getting smoked by the defensive lineman running. So I'll try to keep doing that and not take those hits, because that's the smart way to stay in the football game. That makes sense. Mahomes is smart to avoid getting sandwiched by two defenders. Once again, Mahomes is not the one throwing the flag. He's just taking advantage of the situation fully.
Yeah, he is smart for that, because you don't want Mahomes' backup playing.
No.
Because his backup played last game of the regular season, I'm pretty sure. They got smoked. So it's good that he's trying to stay healthy for his team. That shows how good of a leader he is for his team. But yeah, all around it was a good game for the Chiefs. More of a defensive game, I think, but a win's a win. I mean, in the playoffs, all you want is a win. You're not trying to go off for 400 yards passing just to show off. They just want to win.
Yeah, I mean, let's actually just talk about the game now. Kelsey, he led the Chiefs offense with 7 receptions, 117 yards, and a touchdown. Like I said, this was his 9th career playoff game with at least 100 yards, which is the most in NFL history, breaking a tie with the one and only Jerry Rice. Kelsey and Rice are the only players in the league with at least 2,000 receiving yards and 20 receiving touchdowns in their postseason careers. But Patrick Mahomes moves on to 16-3 in the playoffs and has reached the AFC Championship game in all 7 seasons as a starting quarterback. The streak started in 2018. Running back Kareem Hunt, he added a score on the ground for Kansas City. Harrison Butker, he was 3 for 3 on field goals. The victory was Andy Reid's 300th win in the NFL as a coach, counting the playoffs. The 4th member to join that club. This is also the 8th straight playoff triumph for the Chiefs. But Houston, they gave it all. They gave the Chiefs all they could handle in this one. The Texans gained more total yards, 336 to 212, and controlled the clock, 33 minutes and 26 seconds to 26 minutes and 34 seconds. With a successful running game, 149 rushing yards, and an average of 5.1 yards per carry, running back Joe Mixon tallied 88 of those yards and a touchdown. Quarterback C.J. Stroud, he finished with 245 passing yards, but as we said, he was sacked 8 times. A 15-play, 82-yard drive to open the second half that chewed up 10 minutes and 24 seconds had Houston in position to tie the game at 13. But kicker Kaimi Fairbairn missed the extra point. That right there was the game changer as the Chiefs responded with a 13-play, 81-yard drive on their own that took 7 minutes and 44 seconds and resulted in that Kelsey touchdown. But late in the 4th quarter, linebacker Leo Chenal, he capped the victory with a blocked field goal attempt. The Chiefs' defense accomplished its biggest mission, The unit disrupted the connection between Stroud and receiver Nico Collins. In the previous round, the Texans rallied to beat the Chargers in part because Stroud completed 7 passes to Collins for 122 yards and a touchdown. Against the Chiefs, Collins had 5 receptions for 81 yards. When those plays didn't happen, cornerback Trent McDuffie was effective in man coverage, and Collins and Stroud was pressured or hit by the Chiefs, a byproduct of Spagnuolo's pass rushing plan. Stroud was sacked 8 times and hit a total of 14 times.
Yeah, Stroud was efficient in this game. I'll give that to him. It wasn't his fault that they lost. I mean, he didn't turn the ball over. I mean, you can't ask for more than that from your QB. I mean, he went 19 for 28, 245, and the injuries really cost him because he has a good connection with Tank Dell, and Tank Dell, he's injured. So all he really has is Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz, which both of them were little efficient. I mean, Collins had 5 receptions for 81 yards. Schultz had 4 for 63. So you can't ask more from your offense when you're playing a defense like the Chiefs. I mean, they had 8 sacks. The Texans defense only had 3 sacks, and Anderson had 2. So you can't really ask your QB to throw 5 touchdowns to win this game. But Stroud has been impressive with his 2 years he's been in the NFL.
I mean, if you really want to look at Stroud this season, a lot of people are saying that he kind of had a down season. But they had injuries across the board most of the season. But hey, he won the AFC South once again, and that's not too difficult to do. But congrats to the Chiefs for beating this team, and they move on to play the Buffalo Bills, and we'll dig into that after we cover that game. But next up, we're gonna cover the Commanders and the Lions. I mean, in one of the most shocking NFL upsets in my recent memory, Jaden Daniels and the 6th-seeded Washington Commanders knocked off the NFC's #1 seed on Saturday with a 45-31 road win over the Detroit Lions. The win sends Washington to its first NFC championship game since the 1991 season. The Lions defense knew they had a tough task coming in, trying to limit the Commanders' rookie quarterback, who will likely end up being the offensive rookie of the year. And the Lions had few answers defensively for Daniels and the Commanders' 5th-ranked scoring offense all evening.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels was really impressive in this game because you see a rookie in the playoffs. A lot of rookies, they get overexcited or they're just not feeling it. They get nervous. But I think Jaden Daniels handled himself pretty well in this game. I mean, he went 22 for 31, 299, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, you can't really ask more than that from a rookie. And in the regular season, going 14-5, that's impressive for a rookie. And he has weapons on his offense. Like, the Commanders set that up pretty well for Jaden Daniels. But him being in the playoffs and him making it through the Lions, I think that just gives him an advantage for that Rookie of the Year offense. But I thought the receivers handled themselves too. I mean, as long as you don't drop the ball, it's fine. I mean, you can get like 8 receptions for like 10 yards, as long as you don't drop the ball. But yeah. Brown and McLaurin both had combined 10 receptions. They were the main factors of this win. I mean, McLaurin had 87 yards, 4 receptions. and he got them a touchdown. I mean, he's been in the league for a little while, so he knows how to handle himself, but he hasn't had the chance to do anything in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, the Lions outgained. The Lions gained 521 yards on offense, but ultimately, it was the turnovers. They had 5 turnovers with 3 Goff interceptions and 1 Goff fumble and a Jameson Williams interception on a trick play and around pass. I mean, really, Ben Johnson should be ashamed of himself. But after they trimmed the lead 31-28 through the third quarter, Daniels led a 15-play, 70-yard scoring drive that took up to 8.5 minutes off the clock and culminated with a Brian Robinson Jr. touchdown to get the lead back up to 10 to begin the fourth quarter. Washington essentially sealed the win after Williams' interception on Detroit's next possession by turning it into a Jeremy McNichols 1-yard touchdown run and a 45-28 lead through the fourth quarter. Washington converted the 4th and 2 at the Detroit 13-yard line down to the 1-yard line. That proved to be the dagger in the scoring drive. Daniels, he had a pretty monster game. I've said it most of the season. He does not play like a rookie, and he does not hold himself like a rookie. He is a very mature for a rookie. But in this game, he went 22 for 31, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 122.9 passer rating. He also had 51 rushing yards. But Detroit's injuries on defense finally seemed to catch up with them in this game. Cornerback Mick Robertson left the game with an elbow injury on the second play of the game and didn't return. The Lions came into the game with 13 defensive players on IR, including 6 starters, and we all know about Aiden Hutchinson. They weren't supposed to beat the 15-2 Lions in Detroit. No way could they outscore the NFL's top offense, let alone topple the NFC's number 1 seed. Considering what transpired, beat doesn't do this demolition any justice. There's just too many errors, and it really was a disappointing performance by Jared Goff, which abruptly ending Detroit's season. After 60 minutes of action, Detroit failed to advance to its 2nd consecutive NFC Championship game. It's just, I don't know, man. Detroit's going to have to figure out what they're going to do with Goff, because I'm not sure if Goff is going to be able to get them to the Super Bowl, because, for the past couple seasons, I've been saying that he's like a top 8, top 10 quarterback. But in this game, he looked like a shell of himself. He looked like he was the reason why the Rams traded him. That was how he looked.
Yeah, Jared Goff was bad. I'll just throw that out there. He was bad. I mean, you throw 3 interceptions in a playoff game, you're gonna expect that you're not gonna win that game. But I think the Commanders watched film, because we all see the Lions throwing those trick plays. Yes, they worked in the regular season, but I didn't see them work this game. I mean, you were talking about that Jameson Williams throw, and that resulted in 4th interception by the offense. I think the only thing that went well in this game would be the receiving, which St. Brown is an impressive receiver, but and I'd say Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, he hasn't been in the league that long, but he's looking like he has, because I think he really wanted to win this game, because 14 carries for 105 and 2 touchdowns. That's pretty good against the Commanders' defense. But if they would have won, I think it would be because of Jahmyr Gibbs, because he didn't just have those rushing yards, those rushing touchdowns. He had 6 receptions for 70 yards. And then St. Brown had 8 receptions for 137. So it was not at all their fault. It was Jared Goff's fault and Ben Johnson's fault for calling all these nasty plays. I mean, you can try that in the regular season. It's just not going to work against the Commanders because they obviously looked at the tape, and you can't do anything on those trick plays if someone watched your tape. But,
I mean, speaking of the tape, the offense of the Commanders, they used the Lions' hyper aggressiveness against them with RPOs. Some players felt it simply came down to talent, considering the Lions' injury-ravaged defense, of course. But the scheme helped too. All year, Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, now the new Jets coach, we'll talk about that later, he had blitzed heavily and played lots of man-to-man coverage. So offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury countered by tapping into his roots in the shootout happy Big 12 conference. The former Texas Tech coach called heavy doses of RPOs and spread formations, which allowed quarterback Jaden Daniels to read the defense, find its weak point, and hit open space quickly. If the Lions loaded the tackle box, Daniels would just throw it outside. If they shifted outside, he would hand the ball off or he would keep it himself. The perfect example of this happened late in that second quarter. Daniels read a slot corner blitz and knew the offense had numbers on the perimeter. He ripped the screen to McLaurin, who turned upfield and saw Zacchaeus and Diami Brown blocking defensive backs. McLaurin hit the hole like the running back. He had been in Pop Warner and sprinted 58 yards for a lead his team would never relinquish. That was basically the game right there. It was just a bunch of RPOs. It was very RPO and spread heavy. And, the Commanders really just took advantage of Aaron Glenn's overly aggressive defense.
Yeah, it was just really impressive game by Jaden Daniels. I mean, you can blitz him. Let's just say you blitz him. He's a smart QB. He can roll out. He's fast enough to roll out of the pocket. We saw that in college. We're seeing that this whole season. We're seeing that in the playoffs. I mean, he rushed for 51 yards. But I think it was very impressive for a rookie because he sure found his veteran receivers, and then he found Brown for 6 receptions. I mean, you can't handle yourself any better than that. But he's gonna have this. He's got to have this same mentality coming into the next game because the next game and the next game get even harder in the playoffs. Can't be looking to the next game and thinking it's going to be easier.
Yeah, I mean, the next game, they got the Eagles, and we all know Jalen Carter, that vaunted interior defensive line, and the very young secondary that they got. It still amazes me how they just stole 2 guys in the first round with their cornerbacks. Like, it's really hard to understand how they even pulled that off, but their GM is probably the smartest in the NFL with getting great talent and a scheme put together that fits the scheme for this team. And they're going to be going up against a really good defense. But we will talk more about that matchup later. Next, we're going to jump right into the Bills-Ravens game. Just jump right into it. You could really tell that fumble really sucked the life out of the Ravens. I mean, yeah, there was the drop, but the fumble, it was the beginning of the end. I thought that when Lamar Jackson threw that pick and then the fumble, I didn't think that they were going to overcome those miscues. It was widely known that you can lose a game and a half. And miscues like these only read into that narrative. The Mark Andrews drop, the Mark Andrews fumble, the Von Miller fumble, pick up and score, all of these plays spelled the end for the Ravens. That fumble by Lamar Jackson was just straight up bad luck. It was a bad snap, and Von Miller was in the right place at the right time. If Mark Andrews catches that, I would not want to face the Ravens in overtime because it felt to me that they had taken momentum from the Bills up to that point. Crazy thought. I think Lamar Jackson played good enough to win. Yeah, there was the pick and the fumble, but he recovered from that and put his team in position to win. I do think that he hasn't taken the brunt of the blame this week thus far because, as a quarterback, you're going to take the brunt of the blame. That is going to happen. When you win, you get all the praise. When you lose, you and your head coach are going to get destroyed. But if you saw what Josh Allen did in this game, the Bills didn't really have him do that much. It was a lot of short routes, less risky plays, if you may. The Bills were not scared of the Ravens, and they came out and wanted to punch it down the Ravens' throats to prove that fact. It felt like they wanted to match toughness with toughness and prove that they were the tougher team, like an old school Ravens-Steelers type of game.
Yeah, turnovers can really ruin a game for a team. I mean, you can be mad at Mark Andrews, but he didn't drop that. He didn't drop that much in the regular season. I mean, he's been a reliable receiver all season, but I think those drops were definitely a high reason why they lost the game. I mean, he dropped the ball at the worst possible moment when they needed that 2-point conversion. That really that was bad for the offense. I mean, defense tried their best to stop Josh Allen and Khalil Shakir. I mean, Khalil Shakir, he's developed into a great receiver. Bills fans would probably think with Stephon Diggs gone, we got no receivers. But I think Khalil Shakir handled himself pretty well. I mean, he had 6 for 67. I mean, Josh Allen, of course, like you said, they didn't have him doing much. But I'd say he was efficient. I mean, he didn't throw any interceptions, didn't have any turnovers. He went 16 for 22 and 127. But I think that we just found out who the better team is in the playoffs. I mean, Josh Allen's gone to the playoffs before. This next game, it's going to be interesting because Josh Allen lost that game to Pat Mahomes a few years back, so he's definitely looking to get his revenge.
Well, speaking of the Bills, I did like their game plan in this game. They were physical right off rip. They didn't ask Allen to do too much, and they came out on top. So hats off to McDermott, but excuse me, 7 passing attempts in the first half for Josh Allen. But whatever, they had a great game plan. 1 penalty, no turnovers. You couldn't have scripted it any better if you're a Buffalo Bills fan. But the game was like 14-7 or 14-10, and it was just wild to me that the Ravens abandoned the run again. They did it last year against the Chiefs, and they did it this year against the Bills. You have the best running quarterback in the league by a wide margin and a ridiculous running back in Derrick Henry. And you said, nope, we're just not going to run it anymore. That is a glaring issue. It's not like Henry was trash all season or he's washed. Him and Barkley were basically head-to-head the best running backs in the league. In that one drive in the third quarter, they had 68 rushing yards, and then they went away from it. This is your strength. Why are you not trying to pound the rock? It's not like you were down by 14 or 21 points and you had to crawl back from behind. That wasn't like this. It was like a 3-point or a 4-point game at this point. But, we knew one of these quarterbacks was going to lose this game. Lamar Jackson is amazing. Josh Allen is ridiculous. And now Allen is going to be facing off against Mahomes. So say what you want about Mahomes. I know there's a lot of love for him. There's a lot of hate for him. But to have these three amazing quarterbacks in their prime right now and to be able to see it develop is a great time to be an NFL fan. I mean, you could throw Joe Burrow into this mix if you wanted to, but I just don't see him in this type of class. He gets injured just way too much. It's genetics. Genetics are what they are. Mahomes and Allen, they don't get as injured as much. But the next tier of quarterbacks is going to start with Burrow. And at this point, Jaden Daniels is right there with how he has led the Commanders to the NFC Championship. This is an all-timer type of season. So I do have a question for you. Do you think that Jaden Daniels is the best rookie in the history in the NFL?
I think there's a solid argument there. There's been a lot of great rookie quarterbacks. I mean, we can look back to Cam Newton. We can look back to that. But this impressive season by Jaden Daniels, I mean, not really having much weapons except for Terry McLaurin, and you're bringing a team that hasn't been in the playoffs for years, switching quarterbacks every year, and you just got drafted. And he came in with all that mentality that you want in a new quarterback. And I think we could consider him one of the best rookie quarterbacks in NFL history. It depends how far he goes in the playoffs. I think the defense is going to have to play. I mean, Saquon was yards off of the record. I'm not going to say anything about the coaching there, but they should have played him so they could break that record. I'd love to see it broken. It hasn't been broken for years.
I think it came down to a choice. I don't think the record meant as much to Saquon Barkley than it did to, the fans. So I think it was just a great time for him, to get healthy. But let's get back to it. I do feel like the Super Bowl winner is going to be one of these teams, Chiefs or the Bills. I don't feel like the Commanders have the talent across the board, and the Eagles, it just feels like they don't have everything locked down when it needs to be at this point in the season. But it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like the Bills are going to lose at this point. The Chiefs' offense took a step back from the last time that we saw Mahomes and company played, where they scored, I think it was 29 points, and the Bills just continue to win. Yes, it's just continue to win, but it's far less impressive. This might ruffle some feathers, I know, but this is the least impressive two-loss team that I can remember. And I know it's been said many times up to this point, but the Bills just look like they have the right stuff this time. The defense showed against the Ravens that they can hold the best of the best down. The offense left little to be desired, but I will say they had a lot to do with the weather and the game plan. Obviously, on Sunday, you're going to have to go to Arrowhead. You're going to have to deal with that, but doesn't it feel like this is the Bills' best shot to beat the Chiefs?
Yeah, it has to be the best time for Josh Allen because he's nearing 30 right now. I mean, the way he runs the ball, he's not going to be running that ball for years to come because let's say he plays till he's 37. You're not going to run the ball when you're 37 like he is right now.
No.
I mean, we saw him in the Ravens game. He ran straight through the hole, and he carried a few linemen with him. He's not going to be doing that. But I think the battle was two impressive QBs showing love to each other and bringing the competition. But I think just one side was more impressive, no turnovers. Now on the other side, I think we know what happened there. Turnovers.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to give any predictions out. I'll wait for Friday on that. So if you're looking for some betting assistance, we will jump in on that on Friday's podcast. Actually, it'll be released on Saturday. Work and all that stuff. But getting back to it, I just have it's crazy to think that a Bills team could walk into Arrowhead and win, but I think this is going to be the year to do it. If the Chiefs had Rashee Rice, then I would probably be saying something different. But they don't have him. They're not going to have him until next season. Xavier Worthy, he's had a pretty solid rookie campaign, but we didn't really see him do that much in the last game. Really, if you look at it, Kelsey was the only consistent factor in last week's game. And, the running game wasn't quite there. So that wasn't a threat. And if you're a Chiefs fan, you should really be worried about that Bills defense because, yeah, they gave up points. But the thing is, like, their front seven was looking pretty good that game. And I know that the Chiefs front seven is looking just the same with the 8 sacks, but with the level of competition going up, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to get 50 yards in 3 plays at the end of the game and get that field goal and win the game this time around. Not unless something drastic happens with Xavier Worthy where he turns into Tyreek Hill. We're going to have to see and find out.
Yeah, the defense on both sides is impressive. I mean, we saw Karlaftis and Chanel. And of course, they got Chris Jones. I mean, it's an impressive defense. The Bills are going to have to do more than they did in the Ravens game. We saw them just not do much, and they still won. But I think Pat Mahomes he's going to have to do more because past few games he hasn't passed for that many yards. I mean, he's been efficient, but really not that much. But he's going to have to watch out for that defense. You're not going to drive down the field that easily. I mean, like you said, their front seven looked pretty good against the Ravens. So if the Bills defense can keep that same energy coming into the Chiefs game, because we all know the fans are gonna go crazy against the Bills.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and jump into this Rams-Eagles game. The Eagles beat the Rams 28-22. It felt like the Rams they're just a few players away from being one of the elite teams in the NFC. They need another weapon on the offensive side of the ball for sure, as they looked at Puka Nacua a little bit too much. They're obviously well coached. They're going to have to figure something out with the running back position because they sent Cam Akers out of town because he was fumbling the ball too much. And Kyron Williams is getting to that point, as we saw in this playoff game. I mean, at one point in this game, there was a safety, and I thought to myself, how in the heck is this game so close? I just didn't believe that the Rams had the personnel needed to win this game. And that was before the game, and that's eventually what ended up happening. I mean, for one drive, it was Saquon, Goddard, A.J. Brown, and the Rams couldn't figure it out. But I got to give respect where respect is due. The Rams did a good job with hanging around, keeping the game close in a cold weather atmosphere, snow on the ground on a short week. They have had a rough postseason. I mean, there was fires in California, so they couldn't play the game there. So they had to find another destination, and it's been wild playoffs for Sean McVay, but Sean McVay is just a great coach, and he has built a tough team. I mean, Jared Verse is just a monster among men. If you talk about the three best players in this game, it is strictly Saquon, Jalen Carter, and Jared Verse. And the crazy thing is that he is going up against two of the better offensive linemen in the league. Keep in mind, he's just a rookie.
Rookies this season are crazy. I mean, as you said, Verse. I mean, the Rams, they've lost some players over the years that they needed on defense. But I think Verse handled himself. I mean, there's no good way to stop Saquon. I mean,
No.
He was stuck in New York for years. And then once he's on, because we can say there was good blocking on the Giants, but there really wasn't. And he was still rushing the ball. But when you put a good O-line and you combine it with Saquon, you can't really stop him. I mean, 26 carries for 205. I mean, he averaged 7.9 each carry. And then he got those 2 touchdowns. I mean, the rushing game was what won them the game. Because even Jalen Hurts got some rushing in. 7 for 70, 1 touchdown. I mean, he only threw for 128. That might seem a lot, but it really isn't. I mean, their highest receiver was probably Dallas Goedert with 56 yards.
I mean, the Eagles obviously have one of the better defensive lines in all of the NFL, but the biggest issue for this team is that leader of the team is not the leader of this team. Jalen Hurts. And no, I'm not going after him. This is just what you see on tape. You have the best interior lineman and a very young secondary leading this team. It's not a bad thing, okay? The offensive line for the Eagles, they are impressive. They just create massive holes for Saquon, and he is just the best running back in the game right now. Don't let this man get to the second level because there's a high probability that he's going to take it to the house. But there are reasons for concern with this team. In baseball terms, you can't always hit a home run. There's got to be some singles. There's got to be some doubles, maybe a bunt sometimes. But you got to be able to put this team in position for that home run knock. Most of their drives were like this. Incomplete pass. Rams are stacking the box. Saquon, no gain. Completed pass. Punt. No gain on the run. Incomplete pass. Oh, Saquon is gone. Next drive. Incomplete pass. Sack on the next play. Oh, 78-yard touchdown run by Saquon. You are not going to win the Super Bowl this way. This is a massively inconsistent offensive team. There needs to be more consistency when it comes to the passing game coming up against the Commanders and in the Super Bowl if they make it there. Saquon Barkley, on their other hand, 205 rushing yards, as I said earlier, 26 carries, and the Eagles' postseason record breaking the record set by Steve Van Buren. Yeah, Google that name, guys. Jeez, decades ago. In 2 games this year, Barkley has not been very kind to the Rams. 462 rushing yards. In the Week 12 matchup, he had 26 carries for 255 yards. The problem with the Rams was after Saquon got to the first level, the Rams had a hard time getting him down. You have to have a guy that takes the right angle and gets in the right position to be able to take him down. But as you saw in 2 games this season, the Rams didn't have the dudes. You can't have Jared Verse trying to chase him down. It's not going to work.
Yeah, Verse definitely handled himself very well because he got 2 sacks, 4 solo tackles. I mean, you can't ask more than that from a rookie defensive player. But I think that the Eagles, if they're forced to pass, they're gonna have to do something because they didn't pass that much in this game. I mean, we can look at the stats, we can look at their passing yards, we can look at their receiving yards, but they can't rush all game against Commanders because Commanders got a good defense. I mean, so do the Rams, but they're missing pieces. I mean, so are the Commanders, but if the Commanders stack the box, let's just say that they stack the box, Saquon might average like 2 yards per carry. I mean, they're going to be forced to pass. I mean, they have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And then you got a veteran tight end like Dallas Goedert. So I think if the Eagles can figure out their passing game, they could win their next game. Because their defense, it's good. I mean, they got a few rookies on there, but I think they did a nice job on drafting this year. They got a lot of steals this draft. I mean, there was a lot of steals this draft. I mean, Jaden Daniels in there. It wasn't the number 1 overall pick, but number 1 overall pick always does. There's always a chance they're not good.
Yeah. SGA on YouTube says, I love it. Thanks for the feedback, brother. Thanks for showing up on the podcast. We love it. But really, this is what Philly is going to do to you. Okay? They're going to force you to bring a free safety to defend against the run. And when you guess wrong, the Eagles are going to have to go over the top with Devontae Adams or A.J. Brown. The Eagles are just so good and have weapons to be able to do this to you. You have to get to the point to where you force Jalen Hurts to make these throws, though, because he hasn't had to. He didn't have to in this past game, obviously. You know, A.J. Brown had 24 receiving yards. I mean, if I know A.J. Brown, and I don't know him personally, but if I did, he'd be pretty pissed. I mean, he's attacked his quarterback earlier in the season. So, I mean, you kind of have to. But you're going to have to get to the point and force him to make these throws because right now, Hurts is not playing good. The fan base is questioning if he can even still play. We saw Sunday that he's moving on from receivers too quickly. He's afraid to throw the ball to his open receivers. He was holding onto the ball too long. Part of the offense was just stagnant and out of sorts. They're just way too simple on that side of the ball. In reality, if it's not for Nolan Smith getting the strip sack and Jalen Carter punching the ball out, I'm not too sure Philly wins this game. This Eagles defense was huge for them and came down to determining the results of this game. You saw that the Rams sacked Hurts 7 times, 16 sacks in two games. You got to tip your cap to the Rams defense because they brought it. They tied the 85 Bears for the most sacks in the postseason. You just have to force Jalen Hurts to beat you. Said it a few minutes ago. But this has to be what the Commanders and Dan Quinn are thinking about right now. You can't let Saquon beat you. Force Jalen to do it, and who knows what will happen there. I mean, what would you rather do? Give 20 yards to Goddard, 25 yards on a seam to A.J. Brown, or give out a 75-yard touchdown run to Barkley? I think you all know the answer to that. You can't afford to let Barkley take it to the house and change the momentum of the game. It just can't happen.
Yeah, you don't want to let Barkley go off for 70 yards because we saw in this Rams game that once Barkley got started, he didn't stop. I mean, an impressive running back like Barkley, he's not going to stop. I mean, he's had his injuries like a lot of players. But this year, he's been impressive. I mean, you can't ask more from a running back in these playoff games. I think he just wants to win. He doesn't care about his stats. He cares about his team. So I don't think he would be really hurt if Hurts threw the ball. It doesn't hurt the running back for you to throw the ball. As long as your running back gets rushing attempts, I think you'll be fine. I need A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Goddard need some love.
I mean, I'm about to date myself here a little bit, but I got to do a comparison to this offensive line for the Eagles. And there's only one team that I can compare them with. And Jordan, I know you're a Cowboys fan, but you're just going to have to suck it up right now. You know, you can compare this team to the Cowboys from the 90s. But, you had Emmitt Smith, of course, running the rock. And when you stopped him, you had Alvin Harper and Michael Irvin, along with Troy Aikman. And you had Jay Novacek down the middle. But the big difference is that most teams came into the game and they try to stop Saquon and force Jalen Hurts to beat them. But like A.J. Brown, like I said, he had 24 yards in the playoffs. You have to find a way to get him more involved and be in rhythm of the offense. Yes, he should have caught the ball down the sideline in the first half, and he should have caught the ball when he was in traffic. But it's still not enough opportunities for him to work within the offense. They're going to have to figure something out because Dan Quinn, he is going to drum something up for this Philly team. And I'm not going to say that he's going to stop Saquon in its tracks completely, but it's going to be a different game plan than, the Rams came at him with. And just a little news flash, the defensive line for the Washington Commanders are not bad. Obviously, we saw with all the sacks that they had in their last game, they can actually control the offense. So, I mean, we're really gonna have to figure out what's gonna happen here. They only had a week to prepare for this team, so I mean, Dan Quinn he's gonna draw something up, and I have a feeling that Jalen Hurts, whether he's got a knee injury or he doesn't, if he has a knee injury, well, it's going to be a Saquon Barkley run-heavy type of game. But if Barkley cannot get those broken runs and you have to rely on Jalen Hurts, I don't know. This isn't the 2022 version of the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts.
I just don't see the Eagles even making it to the Super Bowl. And if they do make it to the Super Bowl, let's just say it's the Chiefs and the Eagles. Eagles fans might hate me for this, but I wouldn't watch it. It would be a one-dimensional game because you're just going to run it with Saquon, and I don't know how well you think that's going to work against the Chiefs defense. I mean, rushing yards don't come easy against the Chiefs defense. They got one of the best defenses in the league. That's why they have this record. You can look at Pat Mahomes' stats. You can tell me how well he's played this year and had this record. But either way, I think the Eagles need to figure out their passing game before they get too far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a good game regardless. I don't think that this game is going to be any type of blowout by any fashion. I mean, you got Jaden Daniels against one of the better defenses in the NFL, and you have Washington Commanders trying to do the unthinkable and stop Saquon Barkley and make Jalen Hurts beat you. I don't know. This is going to be interesting. And not to mention, there's kind of a lot at stake here, a trip to the Super Bowl. Well, let's move on to the College Football Playoff National Championship. Ohio State beat Notre Dame, but it has to be mentioned 7 starters didn't play for Notre Dame. Okay? But this question has been asked all day long and for the past couple of days. Why kick the field goal when you're down by 16 to make it a 2-possession game? A 16-point lead to a 13-point lead. Well, I'll give you the answer. Notre Dame scored after this and made a 2-point conversion to make it a 1-possession game. If they made this kick, they have a chance to win instead of just tying it. If they got the ball back, it would have been 31-26 instead of 31-23. This is simple ball knowledge. I don't really understand why Marcus Freeman was getting slammed for this, but the media does what the media does, and not going for it on 4th and goal from the 9-yard line was not a play that was going to work out in their favor. I've seen this everywhere. Just go for it. All right. You have to play the numbers. To me, it was the right call. What did you think about this?
I mean, I saw something good from Notre Dame's offense earlier in the game, but I think once they got started, they didn't know how to keep going. Because the Ohio State offense seemed to be rolling, because I don't think we'll forget about this player. Jeremiah Smith, he was good in the last playoff game, and he was good in this game too. I mean, he was efficient. You can't ask a lot from your freshman receiver, but I think the main reason why they won the game was the 3 touchdowns by Judkins. I mean, he couldn't be stopped. I mean, 11 carries, 121, and 3 touchdowns. I don't know what you can do about that. I mean, really the only contributor on Notre Dame's side was Leonard. I mean, you can say Leonard, but I think it was Greathouse that was a contributor. I mean, he really got in after halftime. I mean, 6 receptions, 128, and 2 touchdowns. That's pretty good for a team that really doesn't pass the ball. I mean, I am surprised they didn't rush the ball more. Because, gosh, I remember that game with Jeremiah Love, and he started off with a 90-yard rushing touchdown, and they only give him like 4 carries. I don't know what that was about, but I think they just relied on the passing game a little too much.
Yeah. Well, we have ICT Sports. He says, I love the live stream, guys. Greathouse went beast mode in this game. Hopefully he stays at Notre Dame. See, that's the thing. You know, he went to Westlake, Texas. And, you know, I did a podcast last night with a Horseshoe Mob podcast. If you haven't subscribed to them, go ahead and do that on YouTube. Great group of guys. We talk about Colts, everything Colts. But there's one guy that's on there that is a Texas guy, and he wants Greathouse to come home. But the problem is, you know, Greathouse, it was between Greathouse and Faison and Mitchell through most of the season. Notre Dame did not have a number 1 guy. Part of that to blame was because Riley Leonard is not really a proficient passing quarterback. Weird to say that. But, you know, he's more of a running quarterback, as we all know. But the problem with that is that kind of takes away from, you know, you've been able to develop these guys. You know, we saw today there was 2 wide receivers that ended up transferring. Well, they're in the transfer portal. But if Greathouse leaves, that is going to leave a massive hole. But we all live in a world where money talks, BS walks, and so yeah, hopefully he does stay home. Thanks for the comment, ICT. Appreciate all of the comments. But you know what? Another big issue with the game was um, basically at the end of the game. There was 2 minutes left. It was a 3rd down and long. Notre Dame needed to come up with a stop. They needed to get home on Will Howard, and they couldn't. They brought the house, and that left man to man with Jeremiah Smith, and I believe his name was Gray. Is a young cornerback. And we all saw what happened. You know, big game basically over. But I don't disagree with the call because it's either that or the zone coverage from Notre Dame's going to be attacked across the middle, and they were getting attacked across the middle all game. You know, this lead that Ohio State had, I basically it comes down to Ohio State went conservative in the second half. That's kind of my take on it. They went conservative, and it almost cost them. If Notre Dame would have gotten the ball back, I'm not going to say that they would have scored, but it would have been very close because they would have needed to score and get the 2-point conversion just to get it to overtime. So that would have been a lot to ask, and they had converted their past 2-point conversions. But what did you think about that play?
Well, I think that throughout the game leading to this play, it just wasn't good. I mean, 17 for 40 yards and 1 touchdown for Brady Leonard. I get this guy likes to rush the ball. I get that. A lot of QBs do these days, but 17 for 40 is not going to win you a game. It's either you pass the ball and you get some touchdowns, or you rush the ball and you gain some yards. And there wasn't much of that. I think the only time he really succeeded on that was probably the first drive, because he rushed that in for a touchdown. But I think just Notre Dame offense just couldn't get going. And shown by that play, Notre Dame just couldn't figure anything out. They tried to figure it out after half, but I think it was just too late. Because you saw that Oregon game with Ohio State. They were down. I mean, not as much as Notre Dame was, of course, but they tried to come back, and that didn't work well because they just kept on going, kept on playing good defense. I think Notre Dame could have won.
I think the biggest problem that Notre Dame ran into was after that first drive where Riley Leonard ran it about 200 times. They couldn't figure out how to attack this Ohio State defense. And Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator for Notre Dame, is a great offensive coordinator. He coached Jaden Daniels last season at LSU, but the big difference between LSU and Notre Dame is they have some dudes. They have 5-star blue chip prospects. You had Brian Robinson last year. You had multiple. I think you had 3 wide receivers that ran a 4.3 or under. But Notre Dame just didn't have that. When you look at it, most of a lot of their recruits that were playing in this game were 3-star prospects. I mean, Notre Dame just isn't getting 5-star prospects to go to their university. Well, I call it a university. It's a Catholic school. I know there's a bunch of arguments about that, but it is what it is. And Marcus Freeman, we'll see if he can get some more upper tier talent. I know Jerome Bettis' kid. Yeah, he's going to be playing there next year. You have Brian Urlacher's son. He's playing safety. So I think they're going to be in a good position. They got 16 returning starters next season, depending on how many people transfer and whatnot. We always have to talk about that because we live in the day and age where transferring is like breathing. Seriously, NCAA, you got to do something. There needs to be some kind of parameters. You can't transfer every single year. It's just ridiculous. I understand you want to get your money, and if there's a college that wants to pay you more, but there's no loyalty when it comes to college sports anymore. College basketball is just as bad. But is there anything else you want to talk about this game?
I mean, Notre Dame has a developed squad. They got a good squad on them, but I think the recruiting, all the players that Ohio State can get, because they're such a high-tier team, so they can get these players that will contribute. I mean, we can talk about Jeremiah Smith. I mean, you can put a QB on Ohio State, and you can have a wide receivers like Egbuka. You can have Tate. You can have Jeremiah Smith. I mean, you can have all those receivers, and that QB will be good. I mean, we did see Will Howard at K-State. It wasn't the most impressive, but I think Will Howard, I think he did pretty well in this game. I mean, you can't ask too much, but a win is a win.
I'm going to touch on Will Howard. Okay. I can't help it. All right. Will Howard, I watched you for 3 years at Kansas State. I was not impressed. I get it. All the K-State fans are going to come out. And if this ruffles your feathers, I'm sorry. The truth hurts sometimes. Here's the thing. Will Howard did not look like this at Kansas State. Why, you ask? I'll tell you why. Because you were dealing with 3-star players, 2-star players on that roster. Well, why does that matter, Ryan? Well, it matters because when you have 5-star blue chip players across the board, wide receivers, tight ends, I mean, you got the best defense in the nation. You have all of these players, all of these weapons. You got 2 running backs that are going to be getting drafted high. Travion Henderson and Judkins. Like, seriously. I think Travion Henderson was the worst of the running backs, and he's the 11th best prospect in a lot of the draft boards. Like, seriously. So here's what I'm getting at. You had all of these athletes with Ohio State. You paid $20 million for a championship. That's what it was. Let's not get it twisted. But here's what happened. All of Will Howard's flaws became masked. So now all of the issues with his feet and his footwork, they don't matter because guess what? You got Jeremiah Smith that can get open in under 2 seconds. Oh, and if that doesn't work, you got Egbuka who can get open as well. Guess what? He's going to be a top draft pick as well. Probably the 3rd or 4th wide receiver off the board. So that is the biggest deal. If you are saying that he is going to be a first-round draft pick, I need you to go back to the drawing board and re-examine things because he's not. I have him with a 4th or 5th round grade because I know a lot of these scouts are saying the same thing. They see his footwork. They see his throwing motion. When you have all of these athletes, all of these 5-star amazing players on your team, they're going to mask your faults. And that's what Ohio State has and did.
Yeah, Will Howard. People are crazy if they think he's going to be a first-round draft pick. Because if you think he's going to go higher than Cam Ward, you're crazy. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks that are better than it. I mean, Cam Ward, he's the most casual quarterback in college. And he's still better than Will Howard. But I think it's how long Cam Ward has been doing this. Because Will Howard, as we talked about a few minutes ago, played in K-State, didn't do anything but the passing yards, but the turnovers were a huge problem, definitely. But I think his only good year was this year. And I think NFL is going to look at that. I mean, they're not going to miss that. That's what they look for. They look for a player that can be good on a bad squad. Because most of the teams that are drafting in the first round for a quarterback, they want a quarterback that they see can be good on a bad squad. I mean, we thought the Commanders were a bad squad. Put Jane Daniels on there. And
I mean, Will Howard's going to be a backup for a few years. I mean, just like I said last night, go ahead. Hey, Tennessee Titans, select him, please. Because I know what I see. I've seen it on tape. I've studied the tape. And congratulations for getting a national championship. Congratulations. I applaud you. Great job. But the fact of the matter still stands. You have a lot of issues that you're going to have to deal with when it comes to the combine, when it comes to the NFL and playing at the NFL, because you are not going to have Igbuka. You're not going to have 2 top 10 running backs. You're not going to have Jeremiah Smith. I mean, maybe you will in a couple of years. Who knows? But let's go ahead and move on to some NFL news for today. Ben Johnson, he went to the Chicago Bears. I'm surprised he actually got a job with how poorly he coached on Sunday, but whatever. The Bears landed their top candidate on the coaching market. You know, he's 38 years old. He took the job Monday after spending the last 3 seasons with the Detroit's offensive coordinator. You know, he's going to be taking over Matt Eberflus's job. He was fired in the middle of the season in the middle of a 10-game losing streak that ended with a win at Green Bay in the finale. Johnson's staff assembly is going to be very important. I would not be surprised if they get former Saints head coach Dennis Allen, because when it comes to defensive schemes and coaching up the defense, he was a really good defensive coordinator. But I still don't know how this is going to affect Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams came into the league saying that he's better than Patrick Mahomes. He is the next Patrick Mahomes. And when he gave his Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks that were in the league right now, Patrick Mahomes wasn't even on the list. I think there's a lot of hate there with Patrick Mahomes. I'm not sure. But hey, good news. Caleb Williams got a new haircut, so that's cool. I just don't think that Caleb Williams is all of a sudden going to flip a 180 and just be elite. Like, whether he had a great offensive line or not. Well, so let's just say Caleb Williams was on the Washington Commanders instead of, the Bears. Granted, I'll give you that the Bears have a really bad offensive line and the Commanders have a better offensive line, but the Bears had better weapons on offense. I mean, it's can be debatable, but I mean, really. So I don't know. I think it's going to take at least a couple of seasons. Ben Johnson coming in the press conference today, just talking all that stuff, saying how he's going to turn this program around and all this and that. Yeah, you're going to have to show me proof, because this is your first time as a head coach. And a lot of the head coaches that are first-time head coaches, they don't pan out very well. Just look at McDaniels with the Raiders. Look at McDaniels with the Denver Broncos. It didn't work out, and he was an offensive guy. He's a great offensive coordinator. Sometimes you're a better coordinator than you are a head coach.
Yeah, he, like you said, he has never been a head coach. That comes with different territory, being a head coach. He's been an offensive coordinator for years. I mean, he spent his time in Boston College, I think 3 years, but he ended his career there, a tight end coach. I mean, he really spent his time around wide receivers and tight ends. So I think if he's going to talk all that stuff and say he's going to turn around this franchise, I think that he needs to do better than he did on the Lions. You can't run those trick plays all the time. They're not going to work. I mean, you can see teams run trick plays every now and then, but if he calls those plays against the Bears division, it's not going to go well. But I do think there could be some potential. I mean, Ben Johnson did say that the Bears was a sleeping giant. He thinks that they're a sleeper team, and he said that he was concerned for the Bears more than any other team in the NFL.
Okay. Don't worry about the other teams in your division, like the Packers or the Vikings or anything like that. But all right, whatever. Let's move on to the Dallas Cowboys head coach opening. The Dallas Cowboys head coach. The search started with a bang and dominated all of the NFL news cycles as reports surfaced that Jerry Jones had conversations with Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. But I'm not sure. We haven't heard anything else about Deion Sanders. I do think that there would be one hiccup if it would come to him hiring Deion Sanders. And I understand Jerry Jones. He likes to hire guys that are connected to the Cowboys, like former players. That's why Kellen Moore is at the top of the list. But the biggest hiccup is going to be the fact that Deion Sanders has a voice. All right, he's not passive like all the previous other coaches. Mike McCarthy, as being the latest example of that. And in order to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys and appease Jerry Jones, you have to have a passive voice because in the end, whether you like it or not, Cowboys fans, he wants to run this organization the way he wants to run it, and nobody else is going to stand in his way. And so I think that is going to be the biggest problem if you bring in Deion Sanders, because Deion Sanders is going to want to run the show. And yeah, you can entice him with money. He said, that he would probably take a head coaching job in the NFL if the money was right. So there's that. But I just don't see how Deion Sanders, I mean, and to mention, Deion Sanders, there hasn't even been an interview scheduled. So there's that.
I mean, as a Cowboys fan, I would love the Cowboys to go to the playoffs. I would love for them to go to the Super Bowl, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But I do think if Deion Sanders does sign with the Cowboys for a coaching job, he's going to want his son on the team. He said that so many times that he wants to coach his son. So I think that whatever team drafts Shadir Sanders gets Deion Sanders. I don't think the Cowboys are going to sign him.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys are predicted to hire Kellen Moore as their next head coach. It's just an odd situation, really. Kellen Moore was fired from the Cowboys early in 2023 and went to the Rams and now the Eagles and has flourished since then. It's a bit of a ballsy move, though, to take him from the Eagles, who are now in the NFC Championship game. I mean, it could be a little bit of a gamesmanship trying to distract the Eagles. But Moore played for the Cowboys in 2015. He coached quarterbacks for them in 2018 and was the offensive coordinator for 2019 to 2022. When the team was ranked 5th in the offensive EPA per play, and they had a 38-28 record with a 576. That history is going to allow Moore to assimilate into the Cowboys culture seamlessly. He would have a good feel for the upside and the downside of the position. Jones could remain the face of the organization. And just like I said, Kellen Moore, he has that passive voice. It's easy to see why Moore is one of the favorites for the Cowboys job. His history with the organization sticks out the most. And we all know that Jerry Jones, like I said, loves to have those personal relationships with his head coaches. Moore and Jones obviously go way back. And Moore's, the big thing with Moore is that, I hate to say it, but the last thing the Cowboys fans want to hear is absolutely part of the Moore appeal in Jones' eyes, being that Jerry wants to maintain full control of that organization. Now, this season, talking about the Eagles, they rank 7th in offensive EPA play per season this season, and could have other opportunities. However, as the Jaguars and Saints have also scheduled interviews with him, would he be the type of deal Jones might be offering after the owner apparently squeezed McCarthy? But they also interviewed Brian Schottenheimer, Leslie Frazier, and Robert Salah. One thing about Brian Schottenheimer, he is the offensive coordinator, but all I got to say is don't hire this man. I'm not a Cowboys guy, but don't hire this man because you are going to go deeper into ineptitude if you hire him. And the sad thing is there was a second interview scheduled with him, I believe, on Thursday. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I don't think you want to hire Schottenheimer because he's been all over the place. I mean, if you see a coach going all over the place, that most of the time it means he's not doing well. I mean, he's been an offensive coordinator just like Johnson, but Johnson's had more success. I know that's for the Bears, but if you're a Cowboys fan like I am, I think you want to win, and this guy doesn't have the most experience with winning. So I think Moore would be our best idea. But having Jerry Jones, we really don't know what he's going to do. You never know what Jerry Jones is going to do, but it's definitely interesting.
Schottenheimer is horrible. Did you see the Cowboys offense this year? I think everybody saw it because you're either a Cowboys fan. It's a lot like the Chiefs. If you're either a Cowboys fan or you hate the Cowboys with everything within you. Yes, Schottenheimer would be probably the worst hire that they could do. Yeah, it would be really bad. And to your other comment, Braves lifer Caleb Williams is trash. Yeah, he was this year. He had his moments. But he likes to play a lot of backyard football, and that's not going to work in the NFL. But one way to ruin a quarterback's career is to have a different offensive coordinator, a different head coach every single year. And this is going to be his second in 2 years, so we'll see. I hate the transfer portal. It has ruined college football. I don't disagree. I wouldn't say I hate it, but there definitely needs to be some parameters put on it because if there isn't any parameters, you're just basically finding the biggest pocketbook, writing a check for the best players that are in the transfer portal, and just buying a championship. That's basically what Ohio State did. I mean, Oregon, they did the same thing. So, I'm not discriminating, but, yeah, you do you. I know Michigan, they paid a boatload of money in order to flip that quarterback from LSU to Michigan. So, yeah, it's not just happening with transfers, it's happening with recruits as well. It's crazy.
Yeah, these days, all these athletes care about is the money. I mean, some athletes are different. Some athletes care about success. Like, let's say they start off at a low team. Let's talk like 1 star. They do well that year, get 800 reception yards. Then they go to, let's say, Oregon or Ohio State, and they don't like it there. They can transfer if they get more money at a different place. NIL has that's the main reason why people transfer. So I think that really ruined
Pay to play. That's it. That's right. That's all it is. As long as you have a great coaching staff. I mean, Ohio State, I give it to you. You have a great coaching staff, probably the best coaching staff in the nation. You got Jim Knowles, Chip Kelly with the offensive mind that he is, and then Jim Knowles, the schemes that he would bring is just absolutely crazy. Like he would set up these defensive plays to where he wouldn't even have to bring added pressure. If he brought added pressure, that quarterback's basically toast. But yeah, pay to play. As long as you got a good coaching staff, good scheme, yeah, you can win that chip. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about, Jordan, tonight?
Well, I'd like to talk about the future games. There's gonna be some good games. Make sure you watch them because I'm gonna watch them. I might even go live for the games. After the games.
Uh-oh. Look out, everybody. All right, well, let's end it on that. Thanks for all the comments, everybody who made the podcast very interesting. I told myself that once comments started rolling in, I was going to pick a comment of the night that made us both entertained. And I'm going this one right here. Braves Lifer, you are the winner. You don't win anything because I'm poor. But thanks for making us laugh. I hate the transfer portal. It has ruined college football. But yeah, thanks for tuning in on this special episode of The Burn and the live stream. We're going to try to go live at least once a week. And don't forget to set your calendars for Saturday, as there will be a shorter podcast dropping, previewing the games of the weekend. But yeah, soon enough, we are probably going to start transitioning into college basketball. We might touch on a little bit of college women's basketball because there's a lot more star power there. So yeah, sports all year long. Come join the Hot Zone Sports Mafia. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Yes, we still call it that. And Facebook. We are now at 30,000 followers. Thank you all for who support us. And if you have not subscribed to us on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, go ahead and do that. That way you do not miss a single episode when our content drops, because we're going to be dropping more reels, more shorts. It's happening. Still getting over this sickness, but we're here. And on that note, I hope everybody has a great Thursday.